Even sat alone in his dimly lit apartment, the faint hum of the city outside doing little to drown out the silence inside. His desk was cluttered with papers covered in alien symbols and half-empty coffee mugs that had long gone cold. A holographic screen flickered weakly beside him, displaying images of strange creatures and star maps he had spent years studying. Even wasn't just any linguist. He specialized in decoding languages from other worlds. But tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight, all he could think about was Claire. Claire had been his everything once. She'd been smart, sharp-witted, and endlessly patient with Evan's quirks. Together, they had worked on groundbreaking projects for the Interstellar Communication Initiative. Humanity's first real attempt to bridge the gap between Earth and the stars. But somewhere along the way, things changed. Evan became consumed by his work, spending nights poring over data instead of sharing meals or conversations with her. To him, it was passion. To Claire, it felt like neglect. When she left 6 months ago, she didn't mince words. "You care more about aliens than you do about people," she said bitterly. "Maybe one day you'll realize what you've lost." Those words haunted Evan every time he looked at the empty chair across from his desk, the same chair where Claire used to sit, laughing at his terrible jokes. Tonight, though, something was different. As Evan scrolled through old files, his wristband buzzed softly against his arm. It was a message from Claire. He stared at the glowing text, disbelief washing over him. "I need your help." That was all it said. No explanation, no apology. Just 3 simple words that sent his heart racing. Did she miss him? Was this some kind of olive branch? Or worse, was she in trouble? Before Evan could respond, a loud knock echoed through the room, startling him so much that he nearly knocked over his coffee mug. It was midnight. Who could possibly be visiting at this hour? Hesitating for a moment, Evan walked to the door and peered through the peephole. What he saw made his blood run cold. Standing in the hallway was a figure unlike anything he'd ever encountered before. Tall and slender, her skin shimmered faintly, catching the dim light like liquid silver. Her eyes glowed an eerie blue, scanning the surroundings with an unsettling intensity. She wore a flowing garment that seemed to shift colors as she moved, defying logic. Evan froze, his mind racing. Was this some kind of prank? A hallucination brought on by exhaustion? Slowly, he opened the door just wide enough to speak. Who are you?" he stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. The woman tilted her head, studying him curiously. Then, in broken but unmistakably human words, she spoke. "Help. Me." Before Evan could react, the lights in the hallway flickered violently, casting jagged shadows across the walls. Somewhere far off, a low rumble echoed through the building, shaking the floor beneath his feet. Whatever, or whoever, this woman was, Evan knew one thing for certain. Nothing about his life would ever be the same again. The city streets blurred past as Claire sped through the night, her hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. Evan sat in the passenger seat, glancing nervously over his shoulder every few seconds. The faint blue glow he'd noticed earlier was now unmistakable. It pulsed faintly in the rearview mirror, growing brighter with each passing moment. "They're following us," Evan said grimly, his voice low but urgent. Claire's jaw tightened as she glanced at the mirror herself. "How far to your lab?" 10 minutes if we don't hit traffic," Evan replied, though the answer felt hollow. Even with a clear path ahead, 10 minutes might not be enough. Behind them, the hum grew louder, accompanied by flashes of light reflecting off nearby buildings. A sleek, hovering drone appeared in their wake, its glowing core casting an eerie shadow across the road. It moved unnervingly fast, closing the gap between them with terrifying precision. "Hold on," Claire shouted, slamming her foot down on the accelerator. The car lurched forward, weaving recklessly through lanes as she tried to lose their pursuer. Horns blared around them, and headlights swerved dangerously close, but Claire didn't flinch. She was focused, determined. Evan grabbed the dashboard instinctively, his knuckles white. We can't outrun that thing. We don't have a choice. Claire shot back, her voice sharp but steady. Just then, the drone fired, a bright beam of energy narrowly missing the back bumper of the car. The explosion behind them sent shockwaves rippling through the air, jolting the vehicle violently. Claire fought to keep control, her hands trembling slightly as she steered them into a narrow alleyway. This way. Even pointed toward a service entrance leading to an underground parking garage. Claire nodded, spinning the wheel sharply and ducking into the dimly lit structure. The drone hesitated at the entrance, its sensors scanning the area before deciding to follow. Inside, the chase became even more chaotic. Concrete walls echoed with the screech of tires and the whirring of machinery as Claire maneuvered the car through tight spaces, barely avoiding collisions. Finally, spotting an emergency exit ramp, Claire gunned the engine one last time, bursting out onto a deserted industrial street. For a brief moment, they thought they'd lost the drone. But then, 3 humanoid figures dropped from above, landing silently in front of them. Their armor gleamed menacingly under the moonlight, weapons charged and aimed directly at the car. "Get out," one of them commanded in a distorted, mechanical voice. Claire slammed on the brakes, skidding to a halt just inches away from the hunters. Her heart pounded wildly as she turned to Even, panic flashing in her eyes. "What now?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Before Even could respond, Valeth appeared seemingly out of nowhere, stepping forward with a calm yet commanding presence. Her body shimmered brightly, radiating waves of energy that forced the hunters to stagger backward. "Go," Valeth shouted, her voice echoing with authority. "I'll hold them." "No," Even protested, lunging for the door handle. "You'll get yourself killed." Valeth locked eyes with him, her expression softening momentarily. "Trust me," she said simply. Then, turning back to the hunters, she unleashed another pulse of light, creating a temporary barrier that gave Even and Claire precious seconds to escape. Claire grabbed Even's arm, pulling him back into the car. "We have to go." Reluctantly, Even obeyed, climbing back inside as Claire floored the accelerator once more. As they sped away, Even watched Valeth in the side mirror, her form glowing brighter and brighter until it nearly blinded him. "She saved us," Claire murmured, her voice heavy with awe. Even nodded, guilt twisting in his chest. "But at what cost?" Moments later, Valeth's voice crackled faintly through Even's wristband. "Find. Map," she whispered weakly. "Stars. Key." And then, silence. The journey to the underwater site was anything but smooth. Even and Claire boarded a prototype submersible, stolen from Even's lab. A sleek, experimental vessel designed for deep-sea exploration, but far from battle-ready. As they descended into the dark waters, the weight of their mission pressed heavily on them. The hum of the engines and the creak of the hull under increasing pressure filled the cramped cabin, adding to the tension. Claire sat at the controls, her hand steady despite the nerves coursing through her. "How deep does this thing go?" she asked, glancing at the depth gauge as it ticked steadily upward. "Deeper than any human-made vehicle should," Even replied, his eyes fixed on the sonar display. "But we're not just dealing with human tech anymore, are we?" Claire didn't respond, focusing instead on navigating the treacherous terrain below. The ocean floor loomed ahead, jagged rocks and towering hydrothermal vents, creating a labyrinthine landscape. According to the coordinates Evan had decoded, the artifact lay buried beneath one of these vents, a natural fortress that also posed significant risks. As they approached the site, strange phenomena began to occur. The water around them shimmered faintly, as if charged with energy, and the instruments aboard the submersible started malfunctioning. Lights flickered, and the sonar screen displayed erratic readings, making it harder to pinpoint their exact location. "What's happening?" Claire muttered, struggling to keep the vessel stable. "It's the artifact," Even said grimly. "It's affecting everything around it." Valeth wasn't exaggerating when she said it was powerful. Finally, they spotted it, a massive structure jutting out from the seabed, its surface etched with intricate alien symbols that glowed faintly in the darkness. It looked ancient yet impossibly advanced, like something frozen between worlds. "There," Even whispered, pointing at the artifact. "That's it." Getting closer proved more difficult than anticipated. A sudden current slammed into the submersible, throwing both of them off balance. Alarms blared as the craft tilted dangerously, threatening to collide with the jagged rocks surrounding them. "We can't stay here," Claire shouted, fighting to regain control. "We don't have a choice," Even snapped back. "We need to unlock it." After what felt like an eternity, they'd managed to position the submersible near the artifact. Suiting up in diving gear, they exited the vessel, venturing into the freezing water. The artifact pulsed with energy, drawing them in like a beacon. Reaching the entrance, Even examined the glowing symbols closely. "These markings, they match the ones Valeth showed me. This is some kind of lock." "How do we open it?" Claire asked, her voice muffled by her helmet. Even hesitated, then placed his hand on the surface. Instantly, the symbols lit up brighter, and a holographic interface materialized before them. It demanded a biological key, something only Valeth could provide. "She has to be here," Even murmured, dread sinking in. Before they could react, a shadow moved across the seafloor. A Silari hunter, armed, and closing in fast. "They found us," Claire gasped, panic rising. Even grabbed her arm. "We have no time. We'll have to try without her." Summoning every ounce of knowledge he possessed, Even began entering commands into the interface, mimicking patterns he'd seen in Valeth's memories. The artifact responded hesitantly, its mechanisms grinding to life. Just as the hunter raised its weapon, the artifact's door slid open, revealing a pulsating core of pure energy within. "This is it," Even said, staring at the glowing heart of the device. "Now we decide. Protect it or destroy it." The pulsating core of the artifact radiated an otherworldly energy, casting eerie shadows across Even and Claire's faces through their helmets. The Silari hunter loomed closer, its weapon trained on them, but neither Even nor Claire moved. Their focus was entirely on the glowing orb before them, a power so immense it could either save humanity or destroy it. "What do we do?" Claire asked, her voice trembling despite her efforts to stay calm. Even hesitated, his mind racing. Valeth's warnings echoed in his thoughts. Protect it. But from whom? And at what cost? If the Silari hunters wanted it badly enough to chase them across galaxies, then this energy source was far too dangerous to leave unchecked. Yet destroying it might mean losing a chance to understand, and perhaps harness, its potential for good. "We can't let them take it," Even said finally, his tone resolute. "But we can't trust ourselves with it either. There's only one option." Claire looked at him sharply. "You're talking about destroying it." He nodded grimly. "If we don't, they'll use it against us, or worse, enslave us. This isn't just about Earth anymore. It's about every world out there." Before Claire could respond, the hunter fired, its blast narrowly missing them as they dove behind a rocky outcrop. The attack destabilized the surrounding area, sending debris tumbling toward the artifact. "We're running out of time," Claire shouted over the chaos. Even scrambled back to the interface, his fingers flying over the holographic controls. He had studied enough alien technology to know how to overload the system. If he triggered a feedback loop, the artifact would self-destruct, taking the energy source with it. "You sure about this?" Claire demanded, glancing nervously at the advancing hunter. "No," Even admitted, his hands shaking slightly. "But I have to believe Valeth trusted us to make the right choice." With one final command, the artifact began to hum louder, its glow intensifying until it illuminated the entire underwater expanse. The Silari hunter paused, sensing the impending destruction, and attempted to retreat, but it was too late. A blinding flash erupted from the core, followed by a shockwave that rippled through the water. knocking Evan and Claire off their feet. When the light faded, the artifact was gone, reduced to nothing more than scattered fragments on the seafloor. Evan and Claire lay stunned for a moment, their breathing heavy inside their helmets. Then, without a word, they swam back to the submersible, their movements slow and deliberate. As they climbed aboard and ascended toward the surface, neither spoke. The weight of what they had done and what they had lost hung heavily between them. Back on land, they stood together under the stars, the ocean breeze cooling their damp skin. For a long while, they simply stared upward, lost in thought. "She gave everything for this," Evan said quietly, breaking the silence. "Valeth, she believed in us." Claire nodded, her expression softening. "And maybe she was right. We did what we had to do." Evan turned to look at her, surprised by the warmth in her voice. "Does this mean you forgive me? For everything?" Claire smiled faintly, though there was still a trace of sadness in her eyes. "Let's just say I'm willing to try again. Starting now." As they walked away from the shore, hand in hand, Evan glanced once more at the night sky. Somewhere out there, Valeth's spirit lingered, a guardian watching over them, ensuring her sacrifice hadn't been in vain. For the first time in months, Evan felt a flicker of hope. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but together, they had faced the impossible and survived. The mechanical whirring outside grew louder, vibrating through the walls of Evan's apartment. Valeth's grip on his arm tightened, her glowing eyes darting toward the door with a mix of fear and urgency. Evan's mind raced as he tried to process what was happening. Aliens were real. He'd known that much from his work. But this wasn't some distant encounter in a lab or through a screen. This was personal, immediate, and terrifying. "Who are they?" Evan whispered, barely able to keep his voice steady. Valeth hesitated, then pointed at herself and said, "Sillery." She paused, searching for the right words. "My people. Not all. Good." Evan's stomach churned. He had read about the Sillery before. Scattered reports suggested they were an advanced species capable of manipulating energy fields and traveling vast distances. But nothing in those files hinted at internal conflict or danger. If Valeth was telling the truth, then the hunters outside weren't just strangers. They were her own kind. Before Evan could ask more, another knock rattled the door, harder this time. The metallic sound sent shivers down his spine. Valeth pulled him away from the entrance, gesturing for silence. Her movements were deliberate, almost rehearsed, as if she'd been preparing for this moment for a long time. "We need to hide," Evan said, glancing around the cluttered apartment. There weren't many options. His tiny living space offered little refuge. "No," Valeth replied firmly, shaking her head. "They will find us. You must help me send message." "A message? To who?" She touched her chest again, then mind tapping on something invisible. "To stars. Call allies." Evan frowned, confused. "You want me to contact your friends?" "Not friends," she corrected. "Others. Like you." Her meaning clicked into place. She wanted him to reach out to humans, to warn them, maybe even recruit their help. But how could he possibly explain any of this without sounding insane? And why would anyone believe him? Before he could argue, his wristband buzzed insistently once more. Claire's name flashed across the screen, accompanied by a string of angry text messages. "What is going on, Evan? Why aren't you answering me? I saw one of them earlier today. Explain no." Evan stared at the messages, his heart sinking. Claire had seen one of the Sillery hunters. That meant she was already involved, whether she realized it or not. He couldn't ignore her anymore, not when her life might be in danger too. "Claire knows something," Evan muttered under his breath. Valeth tilted her head, curious. "Claire." "My ex," Evan explained quickly. "She's smart. Maybe she can help." Valeth didn't respond immediately. Instead, she closed her eyes briefly, as if concentrating. Then, without warning, She reached out and placed 2 fingers on Evan's temple. Images flooded his mind again, this time clearer. He saw towering ships descending upon cities, shadowy figures dragging others away, and finally, himself standing beside Claire, working together against overwhelming odds. "You trust her," Valeth said softly, pulling her hand back. It wasn't a question. It was confirmation. Evan nodded reluctantly. "She's stubborn, but she's resourceful. We'll need her." Just as he finished speaking, the door burst open with a deafening crash. A cloud of smoke poured into the room, obscuring everything. Evan shielded his face, coughing violently. Through the haze, he could make out silhouettes moving swiftly, tall, armored figures with glowing weapons. Valeth stepped forward protectively, raising her hands. A bright pulse of light erupted from her palms, forcing the intruders to retreat momentarily. "Go," she shouted at Evan, her voice filled with urgency. "Find Claire. Tell her everything." "But what about you?" Evan protested, panic rising in his chest. "I'll hold them off," Valeth replied, determination etched onto her radiant face. "Trust me." With no other choice, Evan bolted toward the fire escape window, his heart pounding wildly. As he climbed out, he glanced back one last time. Valeth stood alone in the chaos, her body glowing brighter with every passing second. Whatever happened next, Evan knew one thing for sure. The stakes had never been higher. The lad was eerily quiet when Evan and Claire finally arrived, the hum of equipment the only sound breaking the stillness. Both were shaken, physically and emotionally, but there was no time to rest. Valeth's final message echoed in Evan's mind. Find, map, stars, key. Whatever she meant, it was their next step, and likely their only chance to stay one step ahead of the Siluri hunters. Evan immediately went to work, powering up his holographic workstation and pulling up files he'd been studying for years. Ancient star charts, alien symbols, and cryptic notes filled the screens, glowing faintly in the dim room. Claire hovered nearby, arms crossed, watching him with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. "What exactly are you looking for?" she asked, her tone sharp but tinged with unease. Evan didn't look up as he spoke. Valeth said something about a map hidden in the stars. "If I'm right, it's encoded in these charts. It's why I've spent so much time studying them." Claire raised an eyebrow. "You think aliens left a treasure map in the sky? That sounds like something out of a bad sci-fi movie." "It's not just any map," Evan replied, frustration creeping into his voice. "It could lead us to whatever secrets Valeth was protecting. Secrets powerful enough that her people are willing to kill for them." Claire sighed, rubbing her temples. "Okay, fine. But how do we even start decoding this thing?" Evan hesitated, then gestured for her to come closer. "That's where you come in. You've always been better at seeing patterns than me. Maybe together we can piece it together." For a moment, Claire looked surprised by the compliment. Then, without another word, she stepped forward and began examining the data alongside him. As they worked, old tensions between them slowly gave way to a shared determination. They debated theories, argued over interpretations, and occasionally exchanged small smiles when they made progress. It was strange, almost comforting, to feel like a team again, even under such dire circumstances. Hours passed, and the breakthrough came unexpectedly. Claire noticed something Evan had missed, a subtle alignment between 3 constellations that formed a triangular pattern. When overlaid onto Earth's geography using Evan's software, the points converged on a single location, a remote region deep beneath the ocean floor. "That's it," Evan whispered, staring at the screen in awe. "That's where the map leads." Claire frowned, leaning closer. "But what is it? Some kind of alien artifact?" "I don't know yet," Evan admitted, his excitement tempered by caution. "But if Valeth risked everything to protect it, it has to be important." As they prepared to leave, Valeth's weakened voice crackled through Evan's wristband once more. This time, her words were fragmented but clear enough to send chills down their spines. Energy. Source, she rasped. Powerful. Dangerous. Protected. Even met Claire's gaze, both of them understanding the gravity of the situation. The Silari weren't just hunting Valeth. They were after something that could change the course of humanity forever. We need to get there before they do, Even said firmly. Claire nodded, her expression resolute. Then let's move. We're running out of time. Unbeknownst to them, however, Valeth's condition was deteriorating rapidly. Back in the shadows of the city, her shimmering form flickered weakly, her connection to the map draining what little life force she had left. She knew the end was near, but she also knew she had bought Even and Claire the chance they needed to finish what she started. And so, with heavy hearts and renewed purpose, Even and Claire set off toward the unknown depths, determined to uncover the truth behind the stars' secrets. Even sprinted through the darkened streets, his breath coming in ragged gasps as he tried to put as much distance between himself and the chaos at his apartment. The image of Valeth glowing brighter with each passing second lingered in his mind. Her bravery, her sacrifice, and the weight of her plea. He didn't have time to process it all. All he knew was that he had to find Claire. When he finally reached her building, a sleek, modern high-rise on the outskirts of the city, he hesitated outside for a moment. What would he even say? How could he explain the impossible events of the past hour without sounding like a lunatic? But before he could overthink it further, Claire appeared in the lobby, pacing anxiously. She spotted him immediately and stormed toward the door, her expression a mix of anger and relief. "Where have you been?" she demanded, throwing the door open. "I've been calling you nonstop." "There's no time to explain," Even said quickly, grabbing her arm. "We need to go. Now." Claire pulled away sharply, glaring at him. "Go where? And why should I trust you after everything?" Before Even could respond, a low hum filled the air, the same mechanical whirring from earlier. Both of them froze, looking up just in time to see a shadowy figure gliding silently across the rooftop opposite them. It was one of the Silari hunters, its glowing weapon trained directly on them. "What the hell is that?" Claire whispered, her voice trembling. "That's what we're running from," Even replied grimly, pulling her back inside. They bolted into the stairwell, taking the steps two at a time. Claire stumbled once but quickly regained her footing, adrenaline pushing her forward. As they ran, Even began explaining everything, or at least as much as he could manage between breaths. "There's an alien woman named Valeth," he panted. "She came to me for help because she's being hunted by her own people. They're dangerous, Claire. And somehow, they know about us too." Claire shot him a skeptical look. "Aliens? Really, Even? This isn't one of your research papers. It's real life." "I know how it sounds," Even admitted, frustration creeping into his voice. "But you saw one of them earlier today, didn't you? That's proof enough." Claire hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "Fine. Say I believe you. What do they want?" Even shook his head. "I don't know yet, but Valeth mentioned something about secrets and allies. She thinks we can stop them." By the time they reached the ground floor, the hum had grown louder, echoing ominously through the stairwell. The hunters were closing in. "We can't stay here," Even said urgently. "We need somewhere safe to regroup." Claire thought for a moment, then grabbed his wristband and tapped a few commands. "My car's parked nearby. We'll head to your lab. It's isolated, and you've got equipment there that might actually be useful." For the first time since this nightmare began, Even felt a flicker of hope. Claire wasn't just angry anymore. She was thinking ahead, strategizing. Maybe there was still a chance they could work together. As they slipped out of the building through a side exit, Claire glanced at him, her expression softening slightly. "You owe me big time for this, you know." Even managed a weak smile. "If we survive, I'll make it up to you. Promise." The pair climbed into Claire's car, tires screeching as they sped away from the looming threat behind them. Neither of them noticed the faint blue glow reflecting off the rearview mirror, a sign that their pursuers were closer than they realized. This part highlights the tension between Avon and Claire while establishing their reluctant alliance. It keeps the pace fast and introduces new layers of danger, ensuring readers remain hooked. Let me know if you'd like any tweaks. Avon stood frozen in the doorway, his heart pounding as he stared at the shimmering figure before him. Her presence was both mesmerizing and unnerving, like something out of one of the countless alien reports he'd studied but never imagined encountering in real life. Her glowing blue eyes seemed to pierce right through him, and for a moment, all he could do was gape. "Help, me," she repeated, her voice soft yet strained, each word carefully chosen. "What are you?" Avon managed to ask, taking an instinctive step back. The woman tilted her head again, as if puzzled by the question. Then, with deliberate slowness, she placed a hand on her chest. "Valeth," she said, her pronunciation clear despite the slight hesitancy. It sounded like a name. Avon's mind raced. Valeth. He had no record of such a name in any of the alien databases he'd worked with. This wasn't just some random extraterrestrial tourist. She was something new, something unknown. And judging by the way she looked around nervously, she wasn't here for sightseeing. Before he could think better of it, Avon stepped aside and gestured for her to come in. She hesitated briefly before slipping past him, her movements graceful but cautious. As she entered the apartment, the air seemed to shift, charged with an energy that made the hairs on Avon's arms stand up. He closed the door quickly, locking it behind them. "Why are you here?" Avon asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Valeth turned to face him, her expression unreadable. She raised a slender finger to point toward the window, then mimed something falling from the sky. "They follow." "They?" Avon echoed, dread creeping into his chest. She nodded urgently, her glowing eyes widening. "Danger. For you. For me." Avon swallowed hard. Whatever trouble Valeth was in, it was clearly serious, and now, somehow, it involved him too. Before he could press further, strange things began happening around the room. The lights flickered erratically, casting the apartment into brief moments of darkness. A glass on the counter vibrated slightly before toppling over, shattering on the floor. Even the holographic screen on Avon's desk crackled and fizzled, its display distorting into static. "What's going on?" Avon muttered, glancing around frantically. Valeth didn't answer directly. Instead, she moved closer to him, her gaze locked onto his. "Trust me," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Despite her calm demeanor, there was desperation in her tone. At that exact moment, Avon's wristband buzzed again. Claire's name flashed across the screen, demanding his attention. His stomach churned. He didn't have time for this. Not now. Ignoring the call, Avon focused back on Valeth. "You need to explain what's happening," he insisted, his voice firmer this time. She hesitated, then reached out and touched his arm lightly. The sensation was unlike anything Avon had ever felt. Warmth spread through him, accompanied by fleeting images of stars, vast ships, and shadowy figures chasing her through endless voids. It was as if she were sharing fragments of her memory with him. "They hunt me," Valeth said finally, pulling her hand away. "I carry secrets. Secrets they cannot have." Avon's mind reeled. Secrets? What kind of secrets would warrant being hunted across galaxies? And why had she come to him? Before he could ask more, another knock came at the door, this time louder, sharper. Both Avon and Valeth froze, staring at the entrance. "Who is it?" Avon called out, his voice trembling. No response, just silence. Then, faintly, a mechanical whirring noise filled the hallway outside, growing steadily louder. Valeth's eyes widened in alarm, and she grabbed Avon's arm tightly. "They are here," she whispered. Avon's blood ran cold. Whoever, or whatever, was waiting beyond the door, One thing was certain: his quiet, ordinary life was officially over.